my testimony today as well. When I took this man's advice, actually the first reading, my first pH reading, came up into a much more normal range, almost 7. And I haven't seen a 7 in months. So deacidification is always the remedy if the cause is acid in the tissues. He says that 50% of Western civilization, people on the SAD, standard American diet, are acidified. They have an acidified internal environment. And I think that might be a conservative number. I think that very possibly, the thing about my own life, looking back at this, knowing that I've been health conscious since we were in our late 20s, and weren't doing the standard American diet and still fought symptoms of acidification, I think maybe that's a low number. But that's his number. Your body has a self-defense mechanism against imbalance, and it doesn't matter what that imbalance is. We're amazingly created, and our systems are created to make up for a system that's broken. If one doesn't work, there's a system that rushes in to fix that issue right now, or to help, lend a hand. It taxes the one that's not made to do that job, but our bodies have this defense mechanism, create balance. And when we're talking in terms of acid and alkalis, it's important to know and remember that an alkali in the body, in chemistry, an alkali plus an acid creates balance. They become neutral. And that's how our body defends itself, is by creating neutral out of a combination of acids and alkalis. However, and if you through your diet, I'm going to address diet first, if through your diet you take in alkali, acid, then you're doing a great job supporting or maintaining the balance. You're not at risk for imbalance. However, if your diet, your consumption is acid, alkali, then your body's forced to support that balance from its own regulatory systems. It will do it as long as it can do it. It will maintain balance as long as it can find the resource somewhere in your body. But it's got to go rob it from somewhere. If you take it in through your diet, then what you eat balances itself automatically. It doesn't require ravaging of your other tissues to find alkalis. If you don't take it in with your diet, then it's got to find it somewhere, because your body is going to create balance so long as it can possibly do it. The body's self-defense involves 2 mechanisms: elimination, when it comes to acids, and neutralization. Elimination happens through the organs of elimination. Primarily, when it concerns acids, it's going to be breathing is one of them. Weak acids are transported in your body. They're combined with alkali, and you breathe out the waste through vapors and gases. So the only limitation to your ability to excrete or get rid of weak acids is how deeply and how fast you can breathe. It makes sense when you think about all the lessons we've heard in health about deep breathing and how important it is. Well, that's one of the reasons it's really important, is you can get rid of acid waste, the easy to process acid waste, just by deep breathing. The other is a little more complicated. Your body has to neutralize strong acids. And in order to do that, your body has to have an alkali substance to combine with an acid substance to neutralize it. Once it's neutralized, it becomes a neutral salt, and the body easily lets it out through your kidneys primarily. If your kidneys aren't getting the job done, your skin's often been called the third kidney, because through the sweat glands, you also excrete acid waste. This is why, just by the way, an aside, why you see so many people with skin problems today. A lot of it boils back to the fact that they are excreting acid waste that is irritating their skin terribly. One good example, my own husband. He has these little patches that he gets when he's acidified, and when he really knocks that back with pH, it goes away completely. That's one of those superficial symptoms I was talking about that you will see disappear quickly if acid is the problem. So, if those alkalis needed for neutralizing so that you can eliminate acids, strong acids, then your body's going to withdraw it from organ tissue. You have alkali minerals throughout your body. One of the biggest sources is your skeletal system. You hear a lot about osteoporosis. You probably know people with osteoporosis. You might be a people with osteoporosis. And it's often a symptom of acid that your body's had to neutralize, and it had to find that alkali somewhere. That was the biggest source, and your body reached in, pulled it out, and neutralized those acids. So that you were plundering another system, another organ, and that's what happens over long periods of time. If daily or several times daily you take in more acids than you take in alkalis, then your body has to go plunder somewhere else to neutralize those so that it can eliminate them. So, how do I know, is the next one, how do I know if I have a problem? Well, the author goes into 6 tests you can run, but I'm only going to talk about 2 of them. The primary one is what you did when you came in today. Your urine pH is a really good indication of your internal tissue environment. So, what you did was just for your information. You need to know that one single pH reading doesn't mean anything in the scope of your internal environment. It's not indicative of, if you had a 7.0, it means that what you ate for breakfast balanced what you ate for breakfast, and you're neutral. It doesn't necessarily mean you're always neutral. You need to take a series of readings over the course of 4 or 5 days, and you'll get an overall picture of what your internal environment looks like if you take it several times a day over 4 or 5 days. You all have heard about pH. I know Earl has taught about it often, and so you probably know it's a scale of 0 to 14, 7, the middle is neutral. What you may not have grabbed hold of that is a little shocking when you think about it, is that the difference between 7, which is neutral, and 6 means 6 is 10 times more acid than 7. So logically, 5 would be 20 times more acid, right? No. This is a logarithmic scale. The further you get from that center neutral, it multiplies by 10 each time. So the difference between a 5 and a 7 pH is 100 times more acid. And that explains why you feel lousy when your pH is 5, and you feel pretty doggone good when it's up there near 7. Because you are 100 times more acid if your pH is down around 5, which is where mine was running. If you'll take a look at that next handout I gave you. This was the urinary pH record that I did for myself, and I was already monitoring it before I started the super supplementation that has really made a difference for me. I had figured out acid was my problem, and so I began to take it 3 times a day, like the book said. If you notice, next to these numbers, there's a little asterisk next to some of them. That means that that was the value after I took the alkalizing minerals. The little underline means my pH wasn't satisfactory to me, so I went and took some more alkalizing minerals. And if the next reading didn't reflect that, I took some more until my pH did come up. And if you look at October 23rd, you'll see that I'm running in the 5s. So in fact, before October 24th, I'm really predominantly 5. A 6 was really good reach for me. And that explains why I was feeling so doggone lousy. I was 100 times more acid than I needed to be. And I made my little notes, my observations of what I was drinking. I was having a protein drink with at least 5 big handfuls of spinach in it, fresh spinach, blended in. I was getting a lot of green that should have helped pull that up, but my body was so acidified that I couldn't get it up. I was taking green drinks, I was taking spirulina, I was taking mycopyrin, and it just wasn't enough. For some reason, my body came to an acid crisis. And I'm thankful, it means I can get rid of that stuff. But on October 23rd, what I ordered from the author arrived. And I took the first dose. In the middle of the day, my pH was 5.5. I took the dose. And the next pH I took, it was 6.7. That's a huge jump. Huge jump. And you know what? I felt it. And he doesn't recommend that you do as many as I did. He recommends that for you to begin to evaluate your own acid or not acid internal environment that you take 3 times a day. You take your urine pH for 4 to 5 days. That you take not the first catch of the day. You've been asleep and all night your body's been processing, and that waste is accumulated from all night long. So it should be very acid, your first catch. So discard that, don't take that one. But the second catch should be in the morning, or if you work nights and you get up in the afternoon, whatever your first catch is, it should be before breakfast or before your first meal. Your second catch should be before your second meal, and your third catch should be before your evening meal or your third meal. You want to take it before the meal because what you eat can drastically influence your pH reading. So if you came in today, like I said, and you had a 7, but you had all grains or almonds and milk for breakfast, all of which are alkalizing, then that's reflecting that meal possibly. It's not necessarily reflecting your internal acid or alkaline environment. So I shared mine so that you could see both that I had a dramatic change, and I felt that dramatic change. After the very first boost, I said, honey, I feel better. And I've spent years, our goal is prevent instead of treat. And so in order to do that, you've got to pay attention to your body. You can't wait till your body slaps you down and then say, oh my gosh, I have a problem. You have to be sensitive, and I've practiced and learned how to be sensitive to what my body is doing and what I'm feeling. So I felt a difference. And every time I got to where I'd begin to feel it dropping. By the time I was about 3 or 4 days into the therapy, I'd say, I gotta go take my pH. I think it's dropping. And I'm at home, so I could afford to play with it like this. That's not the therapy he recommends. It's much simpler if you don't want to do all this. It's very simple, much simpler. But I did it for my own little empirical data because I'm an info geek, what can I say? The other thing that is pertinent that I found interesting was on October 27th, I felt so good that I spent about 2 hours vacuuming, and it had been a while since I'd done that. And I have several projects that have been on my little whiteboard for 3 or 4 months. One of them was cleaning the grout on my kitchen floor, which was, I'm so glad none of you came to my kitchen, was so bad, but I just couldn't do it. I did not, every time I thought about it, I wanted to cry, not get up and go do it. It's like, I can't muster the strength to go do that job. After vacuuming that day, I thought, I think I'll go scrub that grout. I'm a little tired. I'm going to go scrub that grout. So I went and got my big brush that's on a stick, and I got my Clorox water, and I started scrubbing grout. It probably took me an hour and a half. And my kitchen looks good again. And amazingly, a few weeks before, that would have put me in bed for days. Literally, I would have been just so tired that I would not have moved much. And instead, he came home, and I was still happy, and I cooked dinner, and it was like, woohoo! I feel better! Wow! And, but you'll notice, right in the middle of that day, I went from a 7 to a 6.1 to a 5.5 to a 6.7, and I was pumping. I was taking it intentionally to see what my pH was doing, and if it was under 7, I went and took some more alkalizing minerals. And in the end of the day, it was back up at 7.1 after vigorous. I do clean vigorously when I clean. And so vigorous activity will also influence your pH reading. That's the whole point of that is, if you're going to go out and do yard work and you know you're having a problem with acidification and you want to keep your pH up because you'll feel better, before you go do that vigorous work, go take some alkalizing minerals. So that as you work, your body has what it needs. Exercise releases acids. So as you work, your body has what it needs to alkalize those and get rid of them without you feeling bad. Okay, so the author recommends you do what I did here on a simpler basis, and that is, and he has a chart in the back of his book, a simple chart. You can make your own. You can do it on a piece of paper like I did. I just typed this for today. Just first, second, and third readings, before first, second, and third meals, after the first catch of the day, and anything out of the ordinary or of importance to note, like vigorous activity, or I went out and had, on October 31st, we've done a modified fast for 3 days, my daughter, my husband, and I, and so at midnight, I went in and ate this meat, cheese, tomato